You're tuned into the Zealous Podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Snyder, and this week I've got Allie Gilbert on the show with me. She is the queen of men's health, Silverback coaching, also a Perform Better presenter. But before we get underway, if you have a team, say physical therapists, chiropractors, athletic trainers, strength coaches, looking for continuing education for all of them, consider going to RockySnyder.com. We can set up continuing education workshops that'll cover all your team members. Meanwhile, go also to SatantaCollege.com. They've got programs of Masters of Science in Performance Coaching, as well as sports injury and return to performance management. Heck, they've got programs for applied sports biomechanics and movement science, as well as applied sport and exercise psychology. And remember, just go to SatantaCollege.com. You can put in RS10 and get 10% off tuition today. And while you're online, hit the NSCA's website and cast your vote today. Elections are in process. Also, click subscribe and enjoy the show. I just got a haircut recently, and lo and behold, I have a silverback. I had no idea. I can never see it in the mirror, but I guess I'm officially. What officially makes you a silverback, by the way?
I would say, just being jacked with like that V taper that they have.
Excellent. I don't have to walk on my knuckles, but I do. But that's not required.
I mean, you can, whatever.
Yeah.
Listen, we're very kinky, so whatever somebody wants to do, we're totally in support of that.
Right on. And are you familiar with the APE index? Do you know what that refers to? Is my wingspan versus my height?
Yeah.
I have a very formidable APE index. I'm
So
definitely simian. Yeah, paddler in my case. Those things back there. Yeah, I'm small but mighty. So I'm kind of like more orangutan or spider monkey than silverback, but that's okay. So we're just jumping right in. I'm going to throw in some intros later, but give me the superheroine origin story. Like, how did you get to be doing what you're doing?
So when I graduated from Springfield in 2003, and
oh my gosh, another Springfield College alum. Unbelievable. It's like, I swear, everybody I have here that has made their way up the ranks of strength conditioning and so on, all roads lead back to Springfield. So sorry, I interrupted. When did you finish there?
It's 2003.
Wow.
Long time ago.
Compared to some, but maybe not others. 2003, Springfield. Nice.
So,
yeah.
Exercise science, everybody wants to train athletes, and you realize that doesn't really make you a lot of money. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to work at a commercial gym in my hometown of Greenwich, Connecticut. And I started working with a lot of guys that played golf. And I was like, I don't know anything about golf. I played soccer at Springfield. So I was like, let's learn about golf. So researched that, found the Titleist Performance Institute, went all in on that, and became the golf fitness person in Greenwich. And that brought me all men as a clientele. And I quickly realized that the conversation would shift from how do I hit the ball farther to how do I get abs and how do I have more energy and nutrition and all that stuff. And then it kind of segued into hormones. And I just realized that nobody really has captured that niche. Like, there's a lot of women's health people, a lot of women's health, everything, but like no one's taking care of the guys. So I was like, okay, there is something here. So I basically learned as much as I could about men's health, testosterone, men's physiology, everything that makes men operate as guys. So being very bro-like and a tomboy growing up, it was very easy for me to relate to guys. I feel they're very easy to coach, and that just became my thing. And then Alan Cosgrove nicknamed me the Queen of Men's Health. And so that's how we landed.
Perfect. All right. So Titleist, TPI, you went through the golf fitness program. Did you go through all three levels, or?
I went through all three. I went hard. I went through that. I went through the junior program. I went through the power program, all three levels, Greg spoke at our wedding. Like we were all in, like I did that for years. Like that was like,
Wow.
yeah, that was my thing. So because guys who play golf also could afford to train, they took it seriously, very similar to an athlete. So I was like, I'm in. Like I'm not for like, let's chit chat and be social during training. I want people who want to work, get it done, who are dedicated to the process. And golfers are like, they're psycho that they brought that.
Okay, well, maybe you obviously had a different experience and different approach than I did. After I went through TPI as well, I didn't go, as deep as you went, but through the fitness program and all that. And I come back and I think this is going to be great. I'm going to get all these golfers coming in here. I went and did classes or teaching training sessions up on the course here in Santa Cruz, very prestigious Pasatiempo, designed by the same golf architect that did Augusta, and I thought this is going to be great. And I get a golfer in here, I improve his drive, his short game is like bulletproof, and I'm just waiting for these referrals. He's like, oh, so just tell your friends. He says, are you kidding me? I'm not telling anybody about you. You're my secret weapon. I'm like, well, what the hell is that all about? So how did you get past that? Because I sure as heck know that you've trained some amazing older golfers and probably some PGAers, but they spread the word. Like, how did that happen?
What I did, I literally went to, so Greenwich has 9 golf clubs alone in the town. So there's a lot to go around, but also we were right on the edge of New York. So we had the entire Met section also. So I literally went to all the clubs and made friends. This was before it was really, really big. So I made friends with all the pros, assistant pros, whoever, and bartered. Like when people were like, who do you take lessons from? I'm like, no, the question is who I didn't take lessons from, because it was everybody. So I basically bartered with a lot of them for lessons and then training, and then built a relationship from there. And then one of the training companies that I worked for invested in a K-Vest. So we had technology, and I think
Wow.
that was also a draw. And just bringing golf performance with the technology, with the nutrition, with the hormone optimization, that was something more unique in our area. So there were other golf fitness professionals, but I think also, like, I was on social media very, very much. And I mean, I went to the PGA show. I had Titleist reps as clients. Like we had a lot of like big timers in that area, which I think helped. And then the company I worked for did a lot of marketing, and then being on the Golf Digest list, like I think that just helped catapult everything. Because guys would say similar, like, you're my secret, but it couldn't really be a secret because they just felt like they had to share. And maybe they shared with people who had a way higher handicap than them and would maybe never touch them. So I don't know. And maybe being a female in the way that I operate was unique, where I'm just like, no bullshit. And, I was professional, but also like unprofessional, and not like in an inappropriate sexual way, but more just I would curse, and like they appreciated that. And so it was, I don't know, I just had fun with it, and it was cool. I mean, I still kind of keep one foot in that world and keep in touch with a lot of people. And I do train some golfers, or we do have golfers on our client roster. So it's still something that we're involved with.
Well, I imagine. I mean, I thought it was just a brilliant business decision on your part to leave Greenwich and move to Florida, because that's where old fat golfers go to die, and you're just going to keep them alive long enough to to make ends meet and build your empire. So you didn't move to Florida because of golf?
No, we moved. I don't even really know why we moved. It was more because I was doing so much online, even though I had a few people in person, and Charlie literally could work. He has New York, he has Florida, he has LA, like all these different places. We could have lived really anywhere. So we're like, why are we paying taxes in Connecticut? And why don't we move? And COVID just basically made that easy. My original plan was to pick up in-person clients down here, but the online business took off so well that I didn't have to. So, which is good, because even though I do know people down here and I have relationships and a place to train people if I had to, I didn't have to do that. And I'll miss it sometimes, but also I'm so busy with our business now that it's really my true passion project. So I enjoy that.
So what are the big buckets within your business, whether it's online or otherwise? What are the big projects you're working with?
Projects. Well, now I run a men's health event every year. So we're in our third year, and it's called the Silverback Summit, after Silverback coaching. And basically, the short version of how this came about was I had spoken at medical conferences, and I noticed that a lot of the material was a little bit antiquated, but they also highly restrict what physicians are allowed to talk about. And I was like, interesting, because there's a lot of this other side of men's health that no one talks about publicly because it gets shamed, I guess. And not that it's bad, it's more like this is the actual truth. And I applied to multiple other organizations in the medical field to speak. And they would always say, no, thank you, we have this topic covered. And I'm like, you really don't. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to create my own event, bring my network of testosterone physicians, my network of fitness, nutrition, and business professionals all together in one room. Because what is one thing that they don't teach us coaches, and they also don't teach doctors, is business, the basics of how to run a business, running an online telehealth clinic, how to do hormone optimization correctly, all that stuff for the practitioners. And then for the coaches, a lot of coaches are like, Allie, how do I know, like, how do I learn what you learned? How do I do what you do? I'm like, spend like 20 years studying men's health and podcasts and attend medical conferences, or you can just come to my event and learn everything from the people that I've been mentoring under for the past like 8 to 10 years. So that's what I created. And I wanted to put my own flair on it, because medical conferences are so boring. Like, they're super stuffy and stiff, and everyone like hugs the podium when they speak, and there's no like fun. And I'm very unfiltered, and my candor is much different. So I wanted people to have fun and be able to just let loose and basically create a party that you learn things at. And that's what Silverback is. So we're doing that this year in Phoenix in November. So I'm pumped for that, because we grew from like 40 guys the first year to now we're expecting 300. So it's pretty cool.
Phenomenal. That's great. Yeah, there's definitely a demand. Okay, so I would love to jump into it.
Yeah.
Turning 57 this year, I have been strength training since 16 years of age. I surf avidly. If I can get out every day, it's a really good week, but also work my tail feathers off in a business. I am omnivorous, but I stay away from breads and sweets, and I don't drink, and I don't smoke. I don't use all those things. What else could I do to improve my life? And what should I be aware of coming down the pipe, hormonally or anything else otherwise?
Have you had lab work done? Is usually my first.
Yes.
So looking at lab work can really be reflective of the things that you have done up until this point, or maybe things that we haven't confronted just because we don't know. So that's why we roll that into our coaching, because we can do everything right nutritionally, everything right training wise. And if something is still off, then getting labs is just data that you can't analyze on the training floor. So that helps us see on the inside, all right, are there ways that we can attack these numbers if we have to, through training, through nutrition? So sometimes there are changes that we can make based on lab work. And then sometimes we have to bring in testosterone replacement, because my personal opinion is that it is inevitable that every man should end up on it. And there's so many stigmas attached to it, and guys are scared of it, or they think it's cheating, or, it's going to kill them or something bad. When we want to normalize the discussion around that, which is part of why I created the summit as well, so that guys can be around other guys who are going through similar changes in their lives. Because for women to go through menopause, it's like accepted. everybody knows that it's a thing, but nobody talks about men going through andropause, which is the same thing as menopause for women. So guys are taught to internalize when they feel a certain way, and they think, well, I just must be getting older. And so then they blame it on age when, yes, there is an age-related decline in hormones. However, we have ways to now basically mitigate that and have guys feeling better so that their quality of life is improved well until, their 80s, 90s and above, if they make it that long. So that's what we want for guys, is to be able to lower their risk of things like heart attacks, strokes, cancers, erectile dysfunction, all that stuff, and make sure that they're hitting all aspects of performance, which is the lifestyle stuff, personal development. They don't really talk about that with a lot of coaches. We talk about that with them, their relationship with their wives, with their kids, with their work. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely and can be a very lonely experience for a lot of men. They don't talk about that. A lot of guys don't even have close friends that they can confide in when they're suffering through stuff. So that's partly why we want to be the sounding board for that, to help them get through that. So it's not just, here's your training program and go eat this. It's literally like, we will take care of everything to make sure that you are on the best path to live an optimal quality of life. So,
Wow. Okay. You just laid out a whole bunch of things that I need to unpack here. First of all, testosterone. Like, I'm not going to ask you to convince me, but I'll be completely transparent and say, I really know very little about that. I've had my head so deep into biomechanics and other areas of strength conditioning and otherwise that maybe it's because culturally it's just like you say, it doesn't come up in our circle of, all right, yeah, we hear all about menopause, and I can tell you quite a few things about that from anecdotally to professionally as well. But why would it be a good idea that as my testosterone wanes in my late 50s going into 60s that I should consider replacing?
so if we think about like what the typical symptoms of low T in guys are, most men associate it with everything downstairs working properly. So they're like, well, everything works, so I'm good. And there's actually a whole host of other symptoms that come along with that, such as brain fog, an apathetic attitude. They just feel more tired, whether that's because it's stress-induced reduction of testosterone or age-related decline. They just don't feel like the motivation and the drive for work for pretty much anything. And so they'll think, well, I'm getting older and maybe I have depression or something like that. But that actually can be a symptom of low testosterone. So why would we want to replete that? Because men's levels are lower and lower and lower than they ever have been. Like our fathers and grandfathers, their natural testosterone would be considered off the charts right now. And the range that they put on lab work has been lowered twice in the last couple decades, because guys have such lower levels due to a whole host of things like the environment, all the toxic shit in the world, but also sedentary lifestyle, technology, all those things. So
Got it.
bring all of that together, then yes, there is, men are showing up with lower and lower levels. Problem is they go to like, maybe a GP will run testosterone and they'll be in this arbitrary range and they'll say, well, you're good, don't worry. Or I've heard such ridiculous stuff like, Rocky, you look really fit, you don't need to test your testosterone. Or I've had friends who've been told, well, you have a beard, you don't need to test it. And I'm just like, how is this indicative of anything having to do with what's on the inside? Like, you really don't know until you test it. So just because you test it doesn't mean that you're going to be a candidate based off these arbitrary numbers. It also is subjective. So if you have symptoms and you still fall in this arbitrary range, you may be a candidate for testosterone replacement. And if you're of a certain age and you're not, like, your testicles have given out, they're done, they've like, I'm tapped, I can't produce anymore, and you have these symptoms, then bringing your levels back to where you should already be biologically will help you lead a better quality of life, but it also helps guys think clearer. It helps them operate more functionally and just more optimally, but also it really does reduce the risk of things like cancers and strokes and all that stuff. So it allows guys to feel the way they should feel really at any age versus just saying, you know what, I'm older, this is normal, blah, blah, blah. Because normal does not mean optimal. So you will be told that your testosterone is normal and it could be like 200, and that's not okay. And that can be of any age. I've seen guys in their 20s that have test levels of like 160 or 220, and that's no way to live life.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, there's a side of me is wondering if my testosterone levels, does it have anything to do, I'm going to get kind of funny here, but with like the hair that is growing in different areas of my body and where it's not growing anymore is completely messing with me. Like the top of my head, I'm practically Friar Tuck, but I could braid my nostril hairs, and my ears, they're just killing. My eyebrows never been bushier. And then there's not only silverback, but there are these spikes growing out of the back of my shoulders. Like, what the hell is going on? Are we talking just the aging process? Are we talking lower testosterone? Are these indicative of anything like that?
I don't think it's a hormonal thing. I mean,
Damn it.
hair growth and loss is mostly hereditary. So
Just a hairy bastard.
yeah, like, you know, that doesn't, I mean, that's not really reflective of like a certain hormone deficiency in my mind. So
All right.
it does,
That's
like, there are correlations with DHT, which is a potent form of testosterone that, you know, if the rate of that accelerates, guys think that they're going to lose their hair, and that's not true. Like if your dad lost his hair, then you're inevitably going to be losing your hair. So that, yeah, but
cool. Blame my dad over testosterone any day. What about nutritionally? Like, how can I be nutritionally supportive to maintain healthy levels of testosterone? Is that possible?
it's possible. So overall, naturally, it's possible to do the best you can is the way I would put it. It's very difficult. Like say your test is 300 and you don't really sleep that well, your diet is shit, you exercise sometimes. Dialing that in might help. Will it get you to 900? Probably not. But those are things you're going to have to address anyway if you go on TRT or not. So it's not like testosterone fixes all those things. Same if a guy is obese and he has body fat to lose, going on testosterone is not going to morph him into a jack dude with a six pack. But it can help the fat burning process. Like testosterone is lipolytic. It is something that augments recovery. It can get them off the couch and acquire the motivation necessary to get in the gym. But it doesn't fix everything and it doesn't solve everybody's problems. It's simply a tool. It's like cardio. It's like anything else. So making sure you're eating enough, but not dieting all the time, because you can deprive yourself of testosterone if you're under eating, if you're overeating. Your body's very resilient, but it will recognize those things. And then having sufficient levels of vitamin D, omega-3s, all those things. But it's not something that's going to bring you from like 300 to 1,000. So
Got it. And what about products that are over the counter versus prescription? Are there any things that you recommend for clients when it comes to balancing out hormones for aging men?
like test boosters and stuff, those don't work. So
They
if
don't.
they did, everybody would take it. So a lot of people have tried to find alternatives for testosterone replacement, and there really is no alternative. Like if a man needs testosterone, he should probably take testosterone. And the analogy I use for that is if you have a diabetic who like needs insulin, we're not going to give them a bunch of protein to go through a very complicated process to provide that. We're going to give them insulin. So if you need testosterone, you need to take testosterone. You don't need to go the herbal route, which is the test boosters, or something that seems like it's testosterone, which is enclomiphene or Clomid or HCG or peptides or anything else. Like if the answer is testosterone, just take testosterone.
And what are the other major elements when it comes to, yeah, just living a good, healthy life with the hope of excessive longevity?
Maintaining a low body fat percentage. So that is something that obviously there's a different movement in what bodies look like. Totally fine. That's great. However, you cannot argue with the science of the fact that if a man is 15% body fat or lower, he's going to have better glucose management. He's going to have lower inflammation. He's going to have more optimal testosterone levels to a degree. And he's going to have a better quality of life and not have to deal with any issues that occur when you're accumulating very bad blood markers due to poor diet, lifestyle, sleep, like that. So those are all things that will contribute. But again, I always will reiterate, these are things someone has to address while on TRT anyway. And I made a post, I think it was last week, where people will see guys who are on testosterone, who are jacked, who are shredded, whatever that means to somebody, but they have visible abs and stuff like that. And I said, just because you see guys who are on TRT and look like that does not mean TRT made them like that. They are looking like that because they are doing what is necessary to have that look, but also that is how men should look. And of course, trolls will probably be like, oh, but if we said how women should look, and I'm like, I'm just telling you, women should have low body fat too, not as low as men. They're different, but if men live 15% or under, they're going to have a better life experience overall. So if you have a lot of body fat, that is the most inflammatory tissue that exists. So that's going to cause a lot of problems. There's a reason why people are pre-diabetic or going into diabetes, especially type 2. Type 2 is completely reversible. Men don't really know that. They just get put on a lot of medications and, you know, told to live their life, when in fact, actually TRT is one of the best things for type 2 diabetes, in conjunction with addressing diet and exercise and all that stuff. So it's always going to come back to the type of lifestyle somebody lives, but there literally is no other substitute for hard work, nutrition, exercise, all of that. It's just when you bring testosterone into that mix, it makes things a lot better for guys because they're already doing what's necessary to have that look, have that drive, operate functionally as a man, optimally as a man.
Sounds awesome. So, what are your biggest challenges? Like spreading this information, trying to make it not only accessible, but how would I say it? Just opening up people's eyes. What are the biggest kind of roadblocks that you find? Is it the culture? Is it the medical field? Is it men themselves? Like, you've been doing this a while. I imagine you've got some experience in this field. So what is it?
I would say the medical field is one of them, one of probably the bigger ones. Culture can be part of that because they have their preconceived notions or beliefs about what testosterone is and isn't. That comes from social stigmas, but it also does kind of come from the Steroid Act of 1990 when everything was banned. And because it's a steroid hormone and it comes in a needle, people automatically associate that with going on steroids. The medical field is a hot mess for many reasons, which can be a topic of another day. But the problem is with testosterone replacement, there are a lot of clinics that have now opened to capitalize on this epidemic of low T. And it's very similar to you just don't know what you don't know. So if men go to a low T clinic, they do a hell of a job with marketing. They will sell you on everything they possibly can, but they do often give out a lot of the same protocol. So there's a lot of ancillary medications that guys get put on that they don't necessarily need, or they get put on a protocol that is very suboptimal and can cause issues for guys. And so then they have a poor experience and they think, well, testosterone didn't work for me, or I didn't like it, or I felt awful on it, when they were actually just mismanaged. So the medical field, because that's pretty much my daily battle, I would say, is guys who are with a physician or a clinic who does not know what they're doing. It's not their specialty. They're put on a very bad protocol. It's hurting them. They're experiencing side effects from medications they don't need to take. And then it's driving them to a competent physician. So guys don't, they're not going to argue with a doctor. They're not going to know enough to resist what he's saying. But we have heard, like, people will message me on Instagram. They're like, thank God I found your page, because I had this doctor and he was saying I needed to do XYZ, and I knew that was bad. So I know I can find somebody else. So I've created a network of physicians that I trust. And I know the people that you do not want to go to and do not trust, which I very, very will not gatekeep at all. Like, I want guys to find someone that they can get help from. So that's probably the biggest battle, is a lot of these clinics, especially in Florida. There's one like behind every gas station and stuff. So it's it's annoying because the laws are different in every single state as well, which is absurd. It makes no sense. Same with different countries. So there's clinics that I have not affiliated with, but associated with and vetted in the UK, Australia, and Canada. So right now, Europe is tough, but all over the world. So we're looking to take this education everywhere, and because we're getting to be known internationally as the men's health education organization, that's why we had attendees from clinics from those countries last year, this year, so that they can learn the right way to do TRT.
And are you somehow creating a campaign, I guess, for lack of a push toward younger male adults, say 20s, 30s, so that the seeds are being planted, and so that in 10, 20, 30 years, it'll be a more acceptable kind of process and understanding the importance of it?
100%. Especially because guys in their 20s, which we never, like, think about when you and I grew up, like, guys over 60 had low T, and now it's like guys over 20, they could have low testosterone. So getting them to be aware, to get their labs done in their 20s, so they have baselines, so they know where they sit, so that you can compare that year after year going forward. Because there are guys in their 40s, 50s who have never had labs done. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, I don't know where my test was in my 20s. So they have nothing to compare it to. But it is important for guys in their 20s to know how they're operating. And I keep using that word, I don't know why, but you want to be able to live the healthiest lifestyle that you possibly can. So if there's something that we have to confront in your 20s, there are men who need testosterone replacement in their 20s. That is how bad the health is of our country, or even internationally, because there are guys who just, they think something's wrong with them because they think I'm too young. Guys in their 30s even, like, oh, well, I'm too young for TRT. You're really not. You don't want to live hypogonadal the rest of your life. You don't want to have these side effects. You don't want to feel like, your identity as a man is taken away from you just because you don't have the hormones to support what you're trying to, like, do in life.
So in essence, what I hear you saying also is that the lifestyle that we are slowly degrading into as a technological society, one that requires an ever increasing lack of physical, purposeful activity, is coming at yet another cost, and that is a depletion of hormones. Probably in both genders, I imagine, but now really recognizing the testosterone. And this has increased at an alarming rate over the last, say, 20 or 30 years.
Since 1982, testosterone levels have declined about 1% a year. So I'm 42. It's 43 years, basically. So 42 years. So it is an alarming rate, and sperm production has decreased 60% since the 70s. So it's like, shit, what's going on with our world? And a lot of it has to do with the lifestyle stuff, but that's like so boring an answer that no one wants to hear. It's got to be this like special supplement or something else, because can't be that I'm drinking alcohol every weekend and, eating crap and not exercising. It can't be that.
Right? Okay, so I'm not going to ask you your body composition, but I just tested mine and it's under 15. So I'm raising the flag of victory there, but I'm also realizing that I am now in a minority. And I've been actually in a minority for many years because the majority of people in our nation are well over that number. And therefore, it becomes kind of like the saying, a million Elvis fans can't be wrong, right? So there becomes this kind of idea that it is more acceptable to have higher numbers, whether it be body weight or body composition, and and there's no shaming. Obviously, we're not in the shame culture any longer, and we're trying to be more aware. I guess my point in saying that is you've got to battle that also, don't you? The mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like people think that you're being, overly restrictive when you're talking about living at 15% or below. And I mean, I have no problem telling people the last time I tested my body fat, I think it was around 11, which is probably more like 14 because these errors they have,
Yeah.
So if I'm near 10 as a female, I'd have striated glutes and I don't, but I do have a six pack and I live with that year round. And I do that to prove that you can maintain that without these wild fluctuations by what we teach in our coaching, which is literally just, knowing when to let loose and not. So people who drink every weekend, they don't consider that bad. Social alcoholism is a thing. And if you're, pounding 5, 6 drinks over the weekend, it's not going to help you get to the body comp levels that you want. But people really don't seem to mind. And then it's really opening their eyes through lab work and through how they feel when they stop drinking to them realizing, oh, wow, I actually sleep a lot better. I'm more present for my family. I'm better at what I do for work. Yeah, there's a reason why that works. And you're 100% right. I've done reels on this where it's like I go to Disney World and it's just baffling. And I used to get very angry at how people looked, not because of shaming, but more like you don't know what you're doing to your health. And then their children are also suffering that because they're basically enabling them because they're taking care of them. And I had to stop getting angry because I'm like, okay, if they wanted to change, they would, because you can. And a lot of people think that it's impossible and it is very hard, but it really is very easy. It's just very hard to execute. But that's why we have coaching and that's why we have, people who live the lifestyles that you and I do to be the model, because kids will model what they see. And if they see their parents working out and taking care of their health and watching what they eat, it's not an eating disorder. Like yeah, I take care of my body because I care about you and I want to see you grow up. I don't want to be in a wheelchair when I'm 50 because I can't stand because I haven't walked 5 more steps in my life. Like, it's crazy. And I comment all the time, like anytime I'm in an airport, people are always asking me, oh, do you compete? Do you do CrossFit? Do you do all this stuff? And it made me realize like, that's because I am a minority. Like you do not see that. Whereas
No.
the 80s, like that was not really so much a thing, but now it is. So that look, that fit look, or having visible muscle is like, oh my God. And then there's the whole other side of it. Well, you must be on steroids because you have visible muscle. And I was very open about being on TRT because women need testosterone too. And I was on it for like 2 years. And last year, I think I traveled like maybe 30, 40 weeks. It was crazy. I suck at injections. I was on injections because I didn't like the cream. And so I was very lazy with it because I would forget or just not travel with it. Come December, I'm like, oh, I've been off for like 3 weeks and I got labs done. I went to my doctor. He is amazing. And I'm like, Dr. Serrano in Ohio. And I was like, dude, I've been off testosterone for like 3 weeks just because I forgot to inject. And he's like, how do you feel? I'm like, I feel okay. Now, 7 months later, I say I'm a natty as fuck, but literally I look the same, if not better. And I'm like, so everybody who trolls me saying I only look the way I do because I was on TRT, 6 milligrams, right, of TRT. Please tell me now, why do I look the way I do? Because the one consistent thing is that I keep up my training and my nutrition and sleep and all that stuff, which are all the things you're going to have to do if you go on TRT, if you want to look that way. But I'm now going as long as I can off of it. And I got my labs done 3 weeks ago. My testosterone was 13. And I'm like, well, here I am still have a 6-pack. Like maybe I'm obnoxious, but I'm just showing you guys that when you blame your testosterone for the reason why you can't get in shape, that is not the whole picture. It's only a part of it. So much.
Okay, well, this podcast, we often have guests that are the professionals within professional sports, whether it's performance directors, nutritionists, dietitians, physical therapists, and so on. So it gets me thinking about the aging athlete, and where does this come into play? Of course, you say everybody should get tested, but when it comes to high level caliber professional athletes that are getting toward the end of their career, would something of this nature, or coaching obviously is going to be a part of it, but this style of coaching help enhance and potentially extend their career into their 40s or so, or into at least their late 30s? Is this a consideration?
So if they're still playing professionally, then they can't. It's illegal. And now a lot of things are illegal, like peptides and a lot of things that help everything that works, like they took fat burners away that worked in the early 2000s. So anything that works, of course, the FDA is like, nope, can't have it. So TRT is not an option for them. But when they retire, there's definitely a lot of options. Even growth hormone is an option. There's growth hormone peptides that work very well. Testosterone is a great thing to augment recovery for retired athletes. I mean, we have a guy, he's 64, he still plays ice hockey, he runs 10Ks. Like we have guys that are just absolute weapons in their 60s that have 6-packs and stuff like that, because also they live the lifestyle. So they've been athletic their entire life. I mean, other than working around fucked up shoulders and, older injuries, which is easy to work around if you have intelligent coaching, they do feel that the fact that they're like, oh, I take my recovery seriously, and now I'm actually addressing my messed up sleep and my hormones and stuff like that. You could do whatever you want for as long as you want. Same with the golfers too, but golfers, like, they don't have as many issues as guys who maybe played football or other sports that are a little bit more physical.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So the love affair you have with the FDA is almost palpable. Wait, give me a little hate mail with the FDA. What's going on there?
So there's very popular peptides such as BPC 157, which is a very popular one for somebody who has like nagging injuries or something. Like you inject it and it helps the recovery process. So it stands for body protective compound. And that paired with something called thymosin beta, or TB500, is a very potent recovery stack. Those are now banned by WADA. And then the FDA is trying to make them even more hard to get at a lot of clinics. So those, there's ipamorelin, there's CJC 1295, which are both analogs of growth hormone. So far, so good with those. Those can actually help with sleep and body composition and stuff like that. But anything that looks like something that can actually help enhance performance, even though they're not necessarily anabolic peptides, gets taken away. So it's crazy. DHEA, which is a precursor to testosterone and estrogen, can't take that. Even thyroid hormone in a lot of organizations can't take that. So.
And what about general population with DHEA? I mean, is that something that people may want to consider, need medical advice before taking, just take it and it'll just flush out your system if you don't need it? I mean, how's that work?
It's only something I advise guys to take if they're deficient. So similar to pregnenolone, which is known as like the mother hormone. So especially guys who suffer from anxiety or stress, stuff like that, you definitely, another reason to get labs done, because you don't want to just randomly take supplements off the counter because you don't know if it's going to harm or do well with, especially pregnenolone. Like if guys are just randomly taking that, then it can cause them exacerbated issues with what they may be experiencing. And like if a guy just goes like, oh, I think my DHEA is low, and then takes like 100 milligrams of it, then it actually can cause premature ejaculation, stuff like that. However, if a guy's very low, he may have trouble finishing, so he may actually need DHEA. So it's very much like the Goldilocks type of term, where it's like not too much, not too little. You want just the right amount. And that's the reason to get lab work done. Are we deficient? What's going on? You know, are the testicles working? Are they not? Is it more of a pituitary issue? Like so much that we don't know, that we're just guessing at. And that's why taking things over the counter just because you think you feel something, it's not the best idea.
So have you created or do you use some type of assessment or questionnaire? Because I could see how certain things you really want the information for, like their stress levels, maybe their sexual health. But how do you screen one of your aging male clients?
What you mentioned, like I ask everything. And it's not like I'm like, you know, hey, Rocky, how are you today? Please tell me about your boner, because I'd really like to know. Most guys, when they come to us, they know what they're getting into, because that's how I operate on social media. I'm like the same in person as you see me on social. I tell everyone TMI does not exist in my world. So guys feel comfortable opening up. So I ask them about their sexual health. I ask if they have experienced any ED, if they suffer from anything having to do with that, how their relationships are, friends, work, with their spouse, all these things. I treat it like HIPAA. It does not get spread anywhere. It doesn't get posted on Twitter. Because we do need to know this, because a lot of guys have never been asked this, number one, and won't really offer that information unless they're asked, because either they don't know that that actually is important, or it's a pride thing. Like, you know, why should I tell her all these issues when I don't know if that's a thing. So we do ask everything. We ask about their sex drive, how consistent it is, their history with their diet. So what diets have you tried? What do you feel worked in the past? Same with training approaches, same with supplements, medications, any lab work that they had done previously. Do we need to get more? Where are we going with this? Like I've changed it a million times because I want it to be as thorough as possible. So I even asked them their favorite car, because I like cars. So
Okay, then based on the results of all that information, does that help you design a strength conditioning program? Because obviously, you know, you do fitness assessments and things of that nature to kind of help out, but does that give you more insight as to, hey, we need to ramp up this guy's cardio? No, he needs more strength training. He definitely needs more meditative, restorative stuff. I mean, does it help in planning that out?
it does, in combination with the labs too, because the labs will tell me if you're stressed, even if you don't. Additional markers of that can be your resting heart rate, your blood pressure as well. Because someone can say, I don't really feel stressed. And I'm like, you're lying, because your resting heart rate is 82 and your blood pressure is 190 over 95. So kind of have an issue there. That alone says we need to stay away from the heavy neurologically taxing work, and not go on things like leg press, which will jack your blood pressure to like 300 over 200, and probably need to err on the side of more aerobic work, which is what most guys avoid. So typically if a man is trending towards 20% body fat, 200 would be really bad. 20% body fat or more, we take an approach with them that I've coined as GPP for TRT, which is general physical prep for ultimately ending up on TRT if they want to. We don't like require that. But it's just like a catchy term that I created, that if you are very high body fat, you're not going to have the best experience going on testosterone. We need to get the body fat down. And that involves a lot of low intensity aerobic training, which men really don't like. So we get it out of the way first thing. Takes about 8 to 12 weeks if they're compliant. Probably a lower carb diet so that we can build their mitochondria, take the glucose load off the mitochondria so that they can actually utilize what they're eating. High protein diet. As they get leaner and go towards 15% and below, then we start to increase carbohydrates, make a drive towards hypertrophy, build muscle, get them more insulin sensitive and lower inflammation. And then they feel better, they look better, their body composition completely changes. And obviously, if there's things in their labs that are like they're stressed out to beyond belief, there might be some supplements that we add to that, like phosphatidylserine, CBD, glycine, stuff like that. Nothing that's like, here, this is going to lower your cortisol, because that pretty much will get fixed with a lot of what we're doing in the coaching. But getting the labs obviously help us that, like, are they pre-diabetic? Do they have really high liver enzymes, bilirubin? Maybe they have non-alcoholic fatty liver. Maybe they have fatty liver. We can test for that. So it's really knowing everything about them so that we can provide the best plan. So it's not just a guess, but it's very simplified in my mind, because it's like, all right, if you are this fat, then we're going to start here. And if you're not, we're going to start here. So somebody who's already been doing the work and they maybe are like between 15 and 20, okay, we can kind of go either direction depending on what we're currently dealing with. Is it a CEO who's like super stressed out and is trying to train 7 days a week? Maybe we go to 4, and then we focus on going for a walk or spending time calming down. So, you know, it's obviously very contextual, but that's kind of like an overview of the directions that we go.
Great. A few things I'm thinking of right now. You mentioned stress, and I can see that being similar to the overweight epidemic in the nation, that stress is higher. So it just becomes kind of accepted that this heightened level of stress the average person's going through is just normal. So you don't really feel stress. So I can see that kind of bouncing around in a conversation. But what about testing sites? So an individual that doesn't have a general, like a primary care provider, a doctor, or anything, and doesn't want to necessarily go through the paper trail that sometimes can be created with red tape and so on. Do you have ideas of testing sites, like independent testing sites that you send people to, or do they have to go through a doctor to get them tested?
No, so we actually work with a clinic where you come on for coaching, you're going to get your labs done. You'll be emailed a requisition. You go to a local lab core for an appointment. You bring them the requisition. They draw your blood. You're done. You don't have to deal with anybody, and everything happens online. So if they're a candidate for TRT, or if they want to try something else, or they need, you know, glutathione or something else that's injectable that you can't necessarily buy in the vitamin shop, they'll get shipped that to their house. So they don't have to deal with going to a doctor's office and all that stuff. So we try to make it very
Brilliant, because going through the medical world can be, well, you say yourself, you've presented to medical community, myself included, and there may be some brilliant ideas out there, but there's so much pushback, usually from the bottom dollar number crunchers or administration, where things just don't move forward, at least in the time frame that we would like. So I guess my last question here, Ali, is like, is there hope in regards to fitness in the medical community? Can there be a merger? Can there be a place where a hospital actually has close to a Michelin star restaurant, and there is a health club or facility there right next to the cardiac rehab and the physical therapy clinic? Is that in our future?
I think so. It's just never going to be something that the insurance companies will pay for. So, and neither is hormone optimization. So going through your GP, going through your insurance, that it's just not an option. And the insurance companies want you to qualify for TRT. based on that arbitrary number. Nobody's going to qualify unless they completely bottom themselves out. And at that point, you're really, really not going to feel so hot. So at least you know what you're paying for, the level of service, and you're with progressive people that look the part as well and live that lifestyle versus, somebody who's just stuck in whatever medical practice. They can't see their feet over their stomach. No hate to them at all. Like, GPs are great. We need them for a lot of things. Doctors are great. There's a reason why you would not go to a cardiologist for knee surgery. Everybody has their specialty. So you want to deal with somebody who is learned and done all the continuing education for hormone optimization. No different than training, right? So I learned a lot at Springfield with exercise science, but I did not learn enough to know for what I do now. So everything that I learned, I had to seek out, and the mentorships that I've done, all of that stuff is self-education. And that is really what you want to look for in people who are dealing with hormone optimization. They're doing this all day, every day. It's not like a side hustle, or it's not a 2-day course that they just dabbed in and kind of learned a thing or two. It's people who are actually in the trenches with men day in, day out. They see the trends in labs. They see what's happening with people who are actually healthy, but want to get to the next level, or they know something's off and they've been told 42 different things. And maybe they think they have the best doctor, the best this, and they're probably very good people, but they may not be the right person for that area of your life.
Well, that's good insight. Okay. So kind of coming up to the clock here, striking 12. If people want to get more insight into Silverback coaching yourself, of course, you and I are Perform Better presenters. Are you going to be at any of the other Perform Better summits coming up? Chicago, Providence,
LA.
or LA? Okay, we're having lunch. That's simple. All right, we'll be there together. But give us a little shout out as to where can we follow you on Instagram, social media, what's your website, and how people can sign up for your conference in Arizona for Silverback.
So literally, Instagram is where I live. I answer all my own DMs. So you can find me at the Ali Gilbert, ALI. Slide in the DMs. Don't be shy. And then for Silverback Summit, silverbacksummit.com. That's where you can find all the information on tickets for that. And we do have a VIP day the day before the event for coaches, medical practitioners, anyone looking to grow their business, learn more about doing what I do and what my team does, and everyone who I have working around me. That's the best way. So the links in my bio lead to all of that if you get lost.
Well, then I'll put the links in the description below the podcast too, so people can find out. So, well, stoked. Okay. And this has been great. I'm looking forward to LA even more, knowing that you're going to be there. That's August 1st to the 3rd, Los Angeles, performbetter.com. I mean, I've just been loving it. I've been going for years and years, and now for the last 5 years or so, I've been presenting with you and Charlie and the rest of the gang, and it sure is a great group of people. Very open, very approachable, and you've been doing it for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, since 2017, and they give us 75 minutes, so it's literally 75 minutes of me going off about everything that we talked about today, but more in depth, probably.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I'll be sitting in your lecture as long as we're not presenting at the same time, which I don't believe. We'll see. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate you, Ali.
I appreciate it.
And that's it for this episode of the Zealous Podcast. I want to thank Ali for coming on. Be sure to check out all the links in the description and sign up for the Perform Better Training Summit in LA. It's coming up beginning of August. While you're online, maybe check out RockySnyder.com. We've got continuing education workshops ideal for your whole medical and training staff, whether they're physical therapists, chiropractors, athletic trainers, personal trainers, and strength coaches. We cover them all. Go to SatantaCollege.com for 10% off tuition. Throw in that code RS10 and get yourself started on a master's program today. NSCA.com. Elections are still open until the middle of July, so cast your vote, and we'll see you next week.